Magandang umaga po mga kaibigan. Kumusta na po kayo? Sana po naman nasa mabuti kayong kalagayan ngayong araw na ito. Maganda po yung pag-uusapan natin sapagkat may kinalaman ito sa likas na yaman ng ating bansa. Meron po ako nakitang impormasyon na maganda ang kinabukasan ng pagmimina sapagkat yung kaibigan natin si Professor Clarita Carlos nag-post sa kanyang Facebook page tungkol sa mining investors na maaring kumita ng malaki kahit mayroong pandemya. Sapagkat lumabas po sa article ng The Financial Times noong ika-17 ng Pebrero doon sa akda ni Neil Hume na siyang Natural Resources Editor na yung mining investors are set to enjoy huge cash bonanza. Ang sabi ni Professor Clarita Carlos ay kung ganito ang potensyal ng ating pagmimina, magandang pagkakataon nito. So suriin natin anong meron sa ating bansa sapagkat for a long while, the mining industry was associated with people who say, that is mine. Of course, that was some decades ago. So we'll talk about the mining industry, and it's supposed to be the country's hidden wealth because it is underground, no? So today, we're joined by Professor Clarita Carlos, a political analyst at professor sa University of the Philippines at dating Pangulo ng National Defense College of the Philippines. Mayroon siyang ginawang pagsusuri tungkol sa pagmimina, lalo na yung small scale mining. Gaano ba ka-small yung small scale? We also have with us Attorney Ronald Residoro, the Executive Director of the Chamber of Mines of the Philippines. At narito na rin si Ginoong Joey Aizon, Pangulo ng Philippine Mining and Exploration Association, at si Engineer Louis Sarmiento, ang kalihim ng Philippine Mine Safety and Environment Association. Dati rin po siyang Pangulo ng PIMSEA. So let's start our discussions today. Maganda po ang pag-uusap natin ngayon. Siguro we'll have a walkthrough, though a short introduction of the industry today. Mula kay Attorney Ronald Residoro ng Chamber of Mines, gaano po ba kaganda ang industriya ng pagmimina ngayon na meron tayong pandemya?
Magandang tanong, Camelo. No? Magandang umaga muna sa lahat ng kasama ko sa panel at sa lahat ng iyong mga tumatangkilik sa Facebook Live. Para sa amin sa Chamber, tama po yung obserbasyon kanina, parang ang mining industry in the Philippines seems to be COVID-proof. No? Primarily because mining companies operate in remote areas and are essentially self-sustaining. No? We can minimize our contact with the outside world. We can silo ourselves inside, sealing ourselves essentially, no? Protecting ourselves from infection. And makikita naman natin that in the last few months, maliit ang naging incidence, if any, ng COVID-19 within mining companies. Now, as to the general performance of the industry in the last 12 months, kalalabas lang po ng report ng MGB on our mineral production, and it seems na imbis na bumaba, medyo tumaas pa siya by at least 10% compared to production in 2019. So yun nga po, pwedeng asahan ang mining industry na mag-contribute to the national economy even in the face of a widespread pandemic like what we're experiencing now. Yun nga lamang po, talagang napakaliit ng industriya ngayon dahil talagang the investment environment in the last I would say since 2012, has not been favorable for large-scale mining investments. So yun sana ang magandang tignan ng gobyerno at solusyonan.
Okay. All right. Siguro let's hear from Engineer Luis Sarmiento of PIMSEA. How safe is mining? Because we've heard of tragedies in some other countries. Engineer Luis?
Magandang umaga po, Camelo, at sa atin pong mga kasama sa panel, yung pong ating mga tagapakinig at nanonood sa Facebook Live.
Morning.
Ang industry po, whether may pandemic o wala, we continue to be very, very proactive in terms of occupational safety and health. No? Iyan po yung nasa DNA po yan ng mining industry at ng mga workers. So, tuloy-tuloy po yon. As a matter of fact, mas pinag-igti ngayon because of COVID, no? So, yung nagbago na po yung role ng isang safety engineer, for example, na expanded role na to cover not only safety but also occupational health. Very important po yon to make sure na masustain natin itong operations natin. Ang ating pong nire-represent ay yung pong mga hindi lang sa metallic, kundi rin po sa non-metallic, yung ating pong aggregates and quarry sectors na for a while nagkaroon din ng nasa matinding challenge because of the recent floodings. Yun din pong ating mga metallic mines na both underground and open pit or surface operations na meron din pong mga challenges related to COVID. As a matter of fact, in the first 6 months of the year, depende sa operations, from 25 to 40% naging impact because of the temporary lockdown. So, very challenging ang industry, but we continue to be very proactive in making sure that our operations are safe and yung ating health ng mga tao is a top priority. This is reflected po. We recently had the PIMEA and the Safety, Environmental, and Community Development Awards validation, and nakita po natin doon kung gaano kagaling at kaganda yung mga ginagawa po ng mga mining operations sa ating bansa.
Very good. We'd like to acknowledge na sa linya na rin si Attorney Deo Contreras. Siya po ay dating Executive Director ng Chamber of Mines. Pero bago tayo magtungo kay Attorney Deo Contreras, siya rin po yung aklat ng commentaries on mining laws and mining way of life. Makakasama natin siya in a short while. Tingnan natin si Ginoong Joey Aison mula sa Philippine Mining and Exploration Association. How is business today? How are you today? Paki-unmute lang po muna. Yeah.
Ayan,
All
okay. Good morning, Camelo. Good morning to fellow panel members and to your listeners. Well, as what Attorney Ron had said, no, medyo magandang outlook ng mining and the MGB has also released the 2020 metallic production. So mukhang tumaas despite bumababa yung gold production, but nickel took the slack. We have a lot of exploration companies now looking into the Philippines. Even local companies are trying to, as I've said earlier, review their projects at baka pwedeng maging online yung development nila. Nabanggit rin ni Director Moncano previously na they have approved 26 new projects. And I think ang plano niya sana umabot ng more than 300 so that the mining industry can contribute more than 5% of GDP. So it's a good industry to be now to be that now kasi it raises money and we're in the countryside. As what everybody has said, we are in a bubble, so pwede natin makontrol yung spread ng COVID, and records have shown na talagang very minimal yung COVID incidents sa mining companies, and if there is, mabilis nating na-cope with. And nabanggit rin ni Engineer Sarmiento sa PMIA, very good yung ng mga companies response to COVID. So I think it's a blue sky and it's a I hope it will be supported by the government. Thank
You're
you, Carmelo.
optimistic. You're optimistic the government will do something
I
good.
hope nga, I hope nga, because let's say if just 2 or 3 mines come online, let's say King, Silangan, Tampakan, and even if they renew Oceana Gold, we should be able to bring in the money to help pay for the COVID vaccines and get the economy started.
Okay, very good. Well, how's that, Professor Clarita Carlos? It appears that there is this blue sky view of people in the industry, but how optimistic are you something good will happen? What about the role of local government units? Professor Carlos, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm always optimistic, Melo. You know that. Otherwise, we would have committed collective suicide, everyone. So, let us just keep the sky blue and keep it blue and bluer. Yes, we did a small study some time back. I can't remember now, and I was trying to dig it up when you called me up last night because I needed numbers. But you know, I'm 74 and can't remember where I kept it. But yes, I've been following the mining industry, particularly because I'm concerned about my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. And I think we're one of the luckiest countries in the world because we are one of the, I think we're 7th or 6th in the list of countries with the most number of mineral resources. And so if you are reading my post on the Facebook, Melo, you're my friend there, you'll notice I keep on pounding on the heads of our decision makers that if they put together the natural resources and the cadre of professionals like us, scholars, scientists, engineers, etc., I mean, we would be the leader in Southeast Asia and we will be a developed economy soon. So what are the major concerns of the mining industry? You already mentioned small-scale mining. Do you know why our heart bleeds for small-scale mining? There are numbers in that paper which I cannot find, which tell us that the greatest degradation of the environment are really coming from this small scale who, dahil nagdudugo ang puso natin sa kanila, hindi natin pinapakialaman. No, but you know, I hope you mining people come out with these studies, put them in the public realm para hindi tabingi yung istorya. You know, I know, you know, as a social scientist, I give everyone a voice. Pabayaan mo yung mining industry magsalita, no? Yung mga corruption sa kanila, the bureaucratic maze, etc. Pabayaan mo yung community magsalita. Pabayaan lahat ng merong katuturan, pagsalitain mo at huwag mong tabingiin ang istorya. That is our role as scholars and as social scientists. So sana nga, Melo, no, sa kadami-dami ng libro kong sinulat, parang walang nagbabasa, no? Pero eto lang, bibigyan ko lang very briefly. These are some of the notes I did last night in preparation for your program. Okay. Siguro nakita ko sa literature and I've been mining the literature. Some of the fairly simple and not really, you know, rocket science things that the mining people can do. Yung lower impact mining, no? Wag na ho nating masyadong anuhin, what do you call this, degrade ang ating environment. I'm sure every one of us is on that page. Then, number 2, no? All over the world. Ang Japan sa 2025, ayaw na niya ng diesel at saka anong pangalan nere, gasoline. Pupunta na siya sa EV, electric vehicles. Ano kailangan ng electric vehicles? Nickel and I'm sure all of your engineers here and some other things, which are our hidden wealth, sabi nga ni Melo. So kanya bumubulusok papataas ang ekonomiya dahil despite the pandemic, nag-open up na ang China market. Alam mo ba ang Toyota, Melo? 1 million ang pinuduce nila for the China market. Aba, dami atang metal ang kailangan ng kotse. Diba? So really the mining industry really became like a silo. No? Kasi siya, continuous ang pangangailangan sa kanya, yung ating mga iPhones. I'm sure alam nung may rare earth tayo and yung iPhones hindi maglalakad kung wala siyang rare earth. Okay, pangatlo. Ang dami na ngayong unmanned vehicles. Hindi kailangan may mamatay na tao dahil nahulog sa mina, you know, nagdagana ng kung ano. Because the unmanned vehicles now, the technology will tell you na pwede mo siyang ilagay dyan, no? Hindi mo na kailangan yung canary in the gold mines para malaman mo na poisonous pala yan dyan sa kuweba na yan na iyong kinakalkal, no? then why are we not using the mining tailings? Nabasa ko rin sa scientific literature, pwede pala siyang gamitin. Marami siyang mga trace elements na pwede pang i-reuse. Bakit yung tailings niyan bigla na lang nagbagsak yung yung kung saan mo siya na reserve, nilagay mo siya sa reservoir, ayan, nalunod yung pababa, no? And finally siguro, yes, to go back to my earlier point, let us shut down the illegal minings. Kasi kawawa din ang mining industry. Pero mo daming pera yung the risks are tremendous, believe me, no? Even if I'm not in the mining industry, I see the numbers, the risks are tremendous. So if we are, we have the propensity to just demonize the mining industry. Oy, if you demonize the mining industry, please kunin ko yung telepono nyo, ha? I mean, sinabi ko yan kay Gina Lopez to her face, nagalit sa akin, no? Siya din may iPhone, eh. Oh, those kinds of things. So, balanse natin lahat. Everybody wants safety mining, and it can be done, by the way. Pakibasa lang yung libro ko on bureaucratic reform. Sorry for the commercial. Sige, Melo.
Alright. Mga kaibigan, sandali lang. We share internet connection to my data because the PLDT has proven again to be, there's much to be. All right. I guess we're back. And we're in a much better condition now. Attorney Deo Contreras, you've been written 2 books. You've been in the mining industry all the years of your life. What can you say about its status today? Yes. Deo. Paki-unmute lang. Deo. All right. Paki-unmute lang para magkarinigan tayo.
There. Do you hear me?
Yan. Good. Okay, of course.
Thank you.
Of course.
Good morning. Good morning to all. Professor Carlos, Ron Residorio of the Chamber of Mines. How is the Chamber? And Louis Sarmiento of PMSEA and Apex. How are you guys? And of course, my friend Joey Aison of the PMEA, the Philippine Mining Exploration Group. These are colleagues in the profession.
Okay.
Anyway, yung tanong nyo, it's so wide, what is the...
How is it today?
What aspect of mining are we talking about? Small
We're
scale?
talking of production and income and its contribution to gross domestic product, and has it uplifted communities from dire poverty, if you may?
Okay. The statistics, more particularly the numbers reported in 2020 by the Bureau of Mines, they are now with Joey Aison. In fact, he emailed me a copy of the data issued by the MGB, but roughly the number 1 performer will be, although lessened, will be the gold mines, contributed to the mining products about 51%, followed by nickel. It's about 38% or something, followed by the rest, copper, But I guess on details, Joey will have all the drawings and the pies to show you. Pero ang concern ko when you send the topic, it's about, is there hidden wealth in mining, di ho ba?
Mm-hmm.
And then about yung small scale mining. Okay. I really wrote the third book I wrote was in 2019. It's It's about the small scale, the laws and realities small scale mining law. Basahin ko lang ho yun sa introduction to cite some figures. And this figure is even way back in 2016. It was reported at the website of the Bureau, and the report by reporter Madeline Miraflor, October 7, 2016. Tingnan nyo ho ang data, production of small scale mining. By small scale mining, I believe these are not reported officially to the government. We call it informal or illegal mining. Di nagbabayad ng tax whatsoever. Wala. They just go to the mountain area and just extract the gold crudely, no? Tingnan yung sinabi ni Ms. Miraflor. 28 tons of gold are produced yearly by small-scale mining in the Philippines. 28 tons. That will translate roughly into 56 billion worth of annual gold production at an average of $1,200 per ounce. ngayon ho, this is now 2021, 2020, ang average cost per ounce ng gold is 1,800. It has stabilized to 1,008. So, if you multiply that with 28 tons, it will be much, much higher than this 56 billion worth pesos of gold product. Ano? And then, sabi pa ni Ms. Miraflor, as reported by the MGB, such yearly gold production has been going on for the past decade. 10 taon na ho from back to 2006. So that would amount to roughly, siyempre, 280 tons yung sinabi nila, times 10 years at 2 billion pesos per ton. The last 10 years prior to 2016 is about 560 billion produced by small-scale mining. 560 billion pesos produced by small-scale mining. Ang tanong namin dito, where did it go? Where did the money go? So yun ho yung isang occurrence ng small-scale mining sa atin, sa Pilipinas, na medyo malungkot. Kasi, you know, I will not say you don't blame them, but if you note that mayor in Itugon-Suyok, nahuli yung kanyang mga kababayan na small-scale mining sa abandoned mines ng Benguet Corporation. Kasi yung Benguet ho, nag-stop ng operation na yan dahil hindi na sila commercialize. Ano ho?
Okay.
But they were allowed by an agreement with the company to mine the small gold deposit there, so that can all be mined by small scale, no crude mining, pick and shovel.
Okay.
May pumasok ko doon sa housing area, nag-collapse, erode, nag-landslide. Namatay yung ibang kababayan ni Mayor. When the Mayor was confronted, why did you allow it? Alam niyo sabi niya sa public, how can I stop it? Almost all are engaged in small-scale mining in my town. So, sabi nga ni Professor Carlos, how do we go about this? Is it governance? Is it our people? Siguro sama-sama titingnan natin yung style natin sa pag-manage itong resources na, tell you, it is the only huge resources we have right now. Wala na tayong fishing. Baksak ang agriculture. Ang land ho natin, ang gulo-gulo, ang land classification, no land use still passed. Who was participating way back in 1995 sa Land Use Act na pinopropose sa Congress? Until now, they haven't really even discussed in a pre-final session the Land Use Act. Paano natin malalaman saan tayo pwedeng magmina, saan hindi? Di ho ba? Saan tayo magtatanim, saan titira? So yan ho yung at a bigger scale na how it is now running. Yung large scale ho, hindi problema. You know, the large scale mining, you can see where they are because they have their companies there, they have their processing plant there, and you can find them easily. But you cannot find the small scale miners which are not reporting whatever they're doing.
But Deo, with what you said, it appears that the small-scale mining is not really that small.
Yes.
And I would like to believe the small-scale miners that we have today have godfathers or big brothers.
Yes.
Now, the big brothers, I do not know because they could play the unseen hand somewhere, no? But
Yes.
anyway, we're joined by another friend, dating Director Jerry Dolino ng Mines and Geosciences Bureau. He's with us today.
See you, Sir Jerry.
Good morning, Jerry. Please join us. I know you're around. Teka, hindi pa siya nakabukas ang video at hindi pa rin naka-unmute. Yeah, subukan natin mamaya. Okay. Pero given such a situation, how does the Chamber of Mines look at this condition? What have you proposed? Have you said anything to the government?
Sa akin ba yun, Melo?
Pero
Sa'yo,
that's
sa'yo.
not me.
Anyway,
Pero,
in that regard, I think there are positive developments naman. If you track kung ano ang sinasabi ng Department of Finance at ng Office of the President in the last 6 months, they've been looking at mining very seriously. In fact, one of the first pronouncements ni Secretary Dominguez last year was they're looking at reviving legacy mines. Yung mga naabandon ng mina noong 1960s and 70s in an effort to repackage them and render them operational once again. That's one thing. The other thing is they're looking to lift the current moratorium on new mining projects. No, kasi if you recall, in 2012, EO 79 imposed a moratorium on new mining projects until a new fiscal regime is passed. No, we've been working on a fiscal regime for mining in the last 10 years. And we've had some successes, but getting stalled at the Senate. No, but now parang the government is really looking for revenue, and they're seeing that mining can contribute. So they're looking at those two things: reviving abandoned mines, and secondly, lifting the moratorium. If that moratorium is lifted, sabi nga ni Joey, maraming interesado at maraming gustong pumasok.
Okay.
Ang importante lang ay masala natin ng maayos. Now, we only accept qualified investors, hindi yung mga fly-by-night na 3 buwan lang nag-ooperate and then nawawala.
Okay. May ganun pala, no? Pero maganda yung binanggit mo sapagkat legacy mines ito at kinikilala yung contribution. Contribution to where? Is it contribution to 2022? Ron?
Hindi naman. I think they are really looking for revenues because COVID-19 has really hit our economy hard, and they need to fund the purchase of vaccines. So
Okay.
they're really looking for funding. Ikaw naman.
Hindi ko naman sinasabi na geared towards the campaign season. But 2022 is a very significant year.
Yes.
Whether we like it or not, it's part of history. Pero, Engineer Sarmiento, sa ganitong pagkakataon, legacy mines, pagkatapos tinitingnan yung revenues, sinabi nyo meron kayong safety guarantees na in place, meron kayong mga safety officers sa mga kumpanya ng mina. Paano nyo hinahasa, sinasanay yung mga tao? Because, emergencies can happen anytime. At a click of a finger, meron magkikilos.
Yes, Camelo. Ang ating mga safety teams or emergency response teams or first aid teams are always ready 24/7 to respond in any type of emergency, not only within the mining operations but also outside the area of their operations. Kasi meron silang periodic na mga training, meron silang mga simulation na ginagawa, and that's why we also encourage yung mga regional at this time of COVID. We encourage yung mga regional na competition para dun sa awareness, because na wala nga tayong last year, yung annual mine safety conference and safety competitions. We're encouraging that na magkaroon ng regional, or even yung mga companies have started also internally, nagkakaroon sila ng mga ganyan na competition just to make sure na yung readiness nila at all times ay nandoon. So yun ang ano po ng ating mga mining companies. Always yung preparedness nandoon. By the way, Dr. Brown, our president of PMCEA, is extending his warm regards to the industry and to you, Camelo.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Maganda yung binabanggit nyo na preparado tayo. Coming from the academe, meron binanggit si Atty. Residoro, Professor Carlos, na meron pala mga kumpanyang fly-by-night. 3 buwan lang mag-ooperate, pagkatapos nawawala. Ano ito? Gusto lang kumita sa stockholders? May mga ganun ba, Professor?
Although hindi ko napag-aralan yan dun sa papel na binanggit ko kanina, merong anecdotal evidence naman na it's a heinous story. I'm sure you know that already. Na yung nakagawa ng talagang katakot-takot na damage, no? Ay biglang nag-change lang siya ng legal personality at hindi natin mahabol. I know that is anecdotal, but I hope we can go back to the Mining Act of 1995. I-review talaga natin yun. Kasi ngayon, I'm sure everyone in the mining industry, the industry itself and the regulators are already aware of a new framework. Ang pangalan niya, ESG. E, environment, S, social, and G, governance. Alam mo yon, hindi lang yun, you just do it because you want to comply. But there are really operational criteria na hindi mo lang ititik yung box na yun eh. You will embed it in the strategic plan of all the mining industries. Parang gagawin mo siyang gold standard for mining all over the world. Kasi pag denigrade mo yung environment natin, hindi lang naman Pilipinas eh. There is only one planet. And when you degrade the environment, you degrade everybody else's environment. You know, parang sa Amazon, pakialaman mo yan, papakailaman mo lahat ng climate ng buong planeta. So what I'm doing right now, Melo, although wala kasi akong in sa mga mining industry people, is really to put that, to embed that in their strategic plan. And hindi lang yung magandang PowerPoint at yung mga drawing dyan. Talagang from the board, you know, I want to convince their board first kasi sila yung decision makers, down to their management, down to the middle, and down to the rank and file. Kasi pag hindi na embed yung ESG framework, then we're just laway na naman yan, Melo. But you know, believe me, again, I said in the beginning of your program, I am always optimistic, guardedly optimistic. And I believe na pag na-embed natin itong ESG, not only in mining, ha, Melo, but in all the industries, we're really in a good place, no? Of course, the literature, ako nalulunod nga ako, Melo, naluluha na yung mata ko sa kababasa nito. Because I'm really swimming in the literature kasi gusto kong maintindihan yung ESG and to what extent the framework can be used in all industries, including mining. And everybody will benefit, by the way. There are now more and more investors. Magpo-pull out sila. They are perceptive. They are environmentally conscious. Magpo-pull out sila ng investment. Alam nila yung industriya, not necessarily mining, na nagpo-pollute ng waters, ng watersheds, etc. And there are more and more investors who are in fact similarly conscious of the damage to the environment. So ESG oo, ang importante.
Alright. Yeah, salamat po doon sa punto na yon. I'd like to pose this question to Ron, to Engineer Louie, to Deo, and to Mr. Aison. May tanong yung kasama natin sa media from Kyodo News Agency, si Alden Monzon. Do you have a rough estimate about the untapped potential of the mining industry in the Philippines? Official figures put the mining industry's contribution to the national economy as very small or significantly small, if I may. If developed to its full or near full potential, how much more can it contribute to the country's GDP? Yan. Any takers from our resource persons? Ron? Ikaw kaya? Ron, please.
Tama si Alden, no? Napakaliit pa ng ating nagagamit sa ating likas na yaman. MGB estimates that only about 2% of the country's 30 million hectares has been explored. Less than 2%. And we have significant deposits for copper, gold, nickel, and iron ore. Na MGB estimates that value is around $849 billion, nearly $1 trillion siguro with latest valuations. No? Clearly, medyo maraming kailangan we go deeper into that valuation dahil hindi natin alam kung anong grado ba ang ginamit ng MGB to estimate those figures. But clearly, compared to other countries, ang Pilipinas on a per hectare basis is very well endowed minerally. No? We are competing with the likes of Indonesia and Peru and Chile. No? So yun po. But then again, napakaliit na na-explore pa na area in the Philippines. And there is significant potential for us, especially in the area of northern Mindanao, the nickel belt. No? There have been no significant mining done in Region 5, in the Bicol area. Napakataas niyan for gold. And of course, we have to go back to Benguet, which is rich in copper and gold. There are some key projects that are stalled in the pipeline right now, such as yung na-mention nga ni Joey kanina, King, Tampakan, and Silangan. These three major projects, if allowed to operate, can add an additional 1.5% to the country's GDP. Malaki yun. No?
Mhm.
Only allowed to operate. At hindi pa tayo titigil doon dahil napakalaki pa nga ng hindi natin na-explore. And we believe that there are still significant deposits that can still be found if only
Aha.
were allowed to prosper.
Okay. All right. Deo, what's your take on this? Yes, please. Paki-unmute lang.
So you're muting us
Yes.
pala,
go
no?
ahead.
Okay, okay. Para hindi
Yeah.
maghalo-halo na. Anyway, when the chamber way back in the 90s, when the chamber lobbied for the passage of a mining act, kasi ang gulo-gulo ng batas no, kung saan kumukuha, no? Merong PDS kay Marcos, merong ruling ang MGB. So we consolidated into one Philippine Mining Act of 1995. Ang contribution noon ng mining industry at that time, it was still vibrant. There were 7 big mining companies operating. It was about 3% of our GDP. Significant na ho yung 3%, ano. But when the Mining Act was passed, and we invited, especially we looked towards Australia, so we opened up the invitation to Australia, the new set of stable mining laws, bigla hong may nagdemanda doon sa Mining Act in 1997, tumagal ng 7 taon in 2004. And look what happened. All the investors suddenly shied away. Dahil how can you have a stable industry if your law is being sued in court? And it was only held valid from 1997 to 2004 by the Supreme Court on motion for reconsideration pa. So starting 2004, it became really a law. Hindi na nila ma-question. Okay. Sadly, one of those who questioned it is now a sitting member of the Supreme Court. But
Kaibigan ko yun Si Justice Marvic Leonen, right?
yes, indeed. He represented a small tribe in Mindanao called Labugal, and we never knew where Labugal came from. And then he sued the Mining Act. It took 7 years. So, nagkaroon ng lull. That's why professions in the mining, they started shying away from studying in geology, mining, etc. Biglang na-demonize yung industry. But that is an occurrence na nangyari. Pero ngayon bumabalik tayo, cycle ito eh. And with this COVID thing that hit us, where will this government get its money?
Okay. All right. So, valid point. Joey Aison, please, your thoughts before we move on to another controversial issue. Yes.
Okay, I just like to quote some figures yung tinanong mo, Camelo, no? The
Yeah.
Philippines is the 5th most mineralized country in the world in terms of unit area kasi we're not as big as the US, diba? So we're actually parang yung in gold, we're about third siguro, in copper, in endowment fourth, and ang estimate ata ngayon is about 840 billion to 1.4 trillion ang value natin. And to support Attorney Residora's statement, ang area natin is about 30 million hectares, and of that 30 million, 9 million is mineralized. And of that 9 million hectares, about 700 plus less than 1 million ang covered by, so less than 2%, 2.4% lang. So ang laki pa rin ng potential ng Philippines in terms of endowment. Ang kulang lang talaga natin is stable laws, na you don't change laws or guidelines midstream. Kasi yun ang gusto ng mga investors yung stable regime. If you look at the Fraser Institute, we are top in endowment, but doon tayo sa bottom kung sa in policies, in stability. So yun ang natin And if I go back to your topic, yung small scale mining, that has to be also addressed kasi they use child labor. Ang nagbe-benefit nun hindi lang naman yung small scale miners They're actually just pawns. It's the financiers and the guys behind that. And I think when the taxes was put in for small scale mining, there was a paper by Jerry Brimo in 2014 na in 2010, 2011, they had about 40 billion or 30 plus billion in contribution in value. But pagdating ng 2014, 0.3 na lang billion. So wala pang ano eh. So ang laki nang nawala. So where did that go? Where did that almost 40 billion peso in gross value go? So sayang. Hindi natin natatap, and then they don't practice the safety methods of the big companies. Kawawa yung mga tao doon. So they are all abused, no? And that's where the big companies can help, and like a big brother or something to help them.
Yeah, Joey, one thing is sure, you're asking where the money went. One thing is sure, wala sa akin.
Wala rin sa akin.
Mabuti maliwanag. Louis, your idea doon sa issue natin na pinag-uusapan? Sige nga.
Camelo, ma-mention ko lang, no, while we have big projects that are in the pipeline, please note that this will take years. No? To put up a medium-sized mine will take about 3 years to start operating, or even construction phase matapos. So while these are in the pipeline, itong ating mga existing mining companies has several tenements, no, that are ready. Kumbaga, more on sa ano lang siguro, documentation, permitting. If the government can help us with this, malaking bagay po ito, because number one, we already have the resources there on the ground. Number two, we have the skilled people and the technical people available. And number three, with the high prices of metal now, we have to take advantage of it. And that helps us with the capitalization. Ano?
Okay.
Ang number one issue sa industry, if we assuming, for example, Silangan and Tampakan starts operating, saan po manggagaling yung labor? Yung skilled labor, yung mga operators ng mga heavy equipment, yung mga engineers. We might have to import from other countries. So that's why in 2008, when we recognized, I was the president of the Mining Engineers Association then, magbubukas yung Pilminera, magre-reopen yung Carmen Copper, mag-start yung Didipio, wala po tayong resources in terms of engineers to support. So we started a scholarship program with initially 5 students, and eventually this was supported by the Philippine-Australia Business Council. Naging dumami na po. Right now, marami, ang problema naman natin, marami na tayong mga graduate engineers, marami nang kumukuha ng mga geology, mining at metallurgy. Wala, kulang naman yung trabaho.
Okay.
So, yun po ang ano ngayon, challenge natin ngayon.
Yeah, that is very understandable. I remember we had Sister Rosan Malilin, the president of St. Paul's University in Surigao City, who said that mining engineering is in doon sa kanilang pamantasan. Siguro may maiko-contribute si Director Jerry Dulino. He's now on board. Jerry, good morning and welcome to the discussion. You were once a director of the Mines and Geosciences Bureau. How was it and how would you compare it today? Yes. Okay.
Hello, good morning. Magandang umaga po, Camilo.
Yes.
Alam mo na nahimik na ako because I don't want to comment anymore. I was once an undersecretary and handling mining operations, but yung state ng mining industry today is very different when we were young, and the mining industry then was very, napakarami. In fact, if I remember right, during 1970s and 80s, I think the mining industry contributed more than 20% of the exports of the Philippines. Marami kasing changes ng policy na really affected the mining industry. Simple lang, may common sense would say, sabi ko dun sa isang kumpanya na who wanted me to be aboard with them, sabi ko, napakahirap magdala ng mina ngayon. It's not like before. Before, if you have a lease contract, when you apply for lease contract, once it is approved, you can already explore. Now, napakahirap. there are so many laws that affects the mining industry. One is the local autonomy code, which devolves certain functions of the mining industry to the local government, especially on small-scale mining. Secondly, there were changes in laws in small-scale mining, which sometimes policy in the government is changes from one administration to another. Sabi ko nga, mahirap magmina. During the time that we were in 1980s, what we contend with is only the mining companies and the peace and order, particularly the NPAs and the lost command, and there are still other
Does that include the police?
Abu Sayyaf was not yet known then. Those were
Hindi
the
kasama yung, Jerry, hindi
Again,
kasama yung militar sa yung police.
yes.
Hindi kasama
Actually,
sa
actually when I was a regional director, I was the once a regional director of the whole mining industry in Mindanao. We always ask assistance from the military, both police and military. But most often, unless it is not really grave and grave enough, no, the military would also, sir, that is not our prime concern. Our prime concern is the peace and order. Yeah. So it is always delegated on the sidelines as far as assistance is concerned. But they try to, there are times that they really help us, especially when we run after small-scale mining, when it was still controlled by us or by the MGB. So, yun, maraming policy, marami ka ng, may local government code ka, naabutan ka ng so many environmental laws, naabutan ka ng Indigenous Peoples Act, no? And when we prepare for a business project study before, we consider only 3 sectors, and that is the economic, the social, and the political. But nowadays we have to consider 4 sectors already. It's not a trialectic anymore. It's already quadrilectic because you have to consider the environmental sector, which is actually now is the biggest problem the mining industry is facing. No, because the government. When I was in government, I was asked by one secretary as to how much our fund for information, and I said when I was undersecretary, then I was assistant secretary during the time. And I said, sir, our funds is so much. Sir, my goodness, in the agency that I was assigned before, that is only peanuts. So we have limited resources in terms of information dissemination and education. And secondly, we cannot devote all our time to information because we have so many things in the Department of Environment and Natural Resources to attend to. We have forestry, we have environment, we have biodiversity, we have protected areas, we have lands, and we have research. So information is sometimes related to sideline. That is why in the battle of discussions and debates, we are always behind. Right. So Mel, siguro dyan lang muna. By the way, I just like to input something about the small-scale mining.
Yeah.
The small-scale mining kasi, the concept that we have developed, and unfortunately, humility aside, it started from me. Because I believe then when I was the regional director in Davao, and I was practicing an evaluation engineer in the Bureau of Mines before in the central office, that this small-scale industry has, because of the price of gold that jumped from 35, because before I believe the price of gold was pegged at $35 an ounce. When it jumped to $800 an ounce, then that is the start of the small-scale mining. But when we drafted small-scale mining, the government then and the country then was too concentrated on big scale. So we just kept I just kept our draft that she developed in Surigao. So later on, I think they realized that small-scale mining was already common in all countries in the world, particularly in Chile and Peru. So Director Fernandez then said that we have to consider now making a law on small-scale mining. So the concept that we have developed is that really it is really artisanal. It is a real artisanal, just to cater, because the experience in Baguio, as what Attorney Contreras said, my good friend, when I was evaluating Itugon before, assessing Itugon, I was surprised that when they said that tunnel, I have to visit that tunnel because that's part of the job. As it said, that has not been under maintenance for a long time. Nevertheless, so I went there, and I was surprised that when I came in, the face of the tunnel, there was a light. There was a light. Sorry, this moment na lang, a moment na lang. There was a light. And the one that was there was a lady mining. No? So that is really a livelihood of the people in Baguio. So we considered when it, nagkaroon ng Masapilid and then Dibalwal, Agusan, we thought that we can, the small-scale mining. So it was developed. It was in fact approved by the President Marcos within 3 days when it was passed. And the concept was that it is a social law. Therefore, it is tax-free. Secondly, the concept is that we do not want the small scale to be permanently small scale, but we give them a chance to become a big scale. They have to own a mining claim. I think I have to stop in there.
Okay. All right.
I'm consuming much.
Marami yung binanggit nyo, pero I have to ask Professor Carlos from the outside looking in. You have the local government code, you have the IPRA, you have the Mining Act, and so many other laws. Don't you think it's high time for the government to look into all these laws? Pagsama-samahin na para hindi tayo mahihilo.
I would agree with that. I would agree
Carlos, please.
to that.
Yes.
In fact, to me, as far as I'm concerned, the environmental law, which is basically 1586, which is actually the original, aside from the National Pollution Control Law, because that was the original law when it was still under NPC, or National Pollution Control Commission, it has to be amended because it is already 1986 pa, and it is most of the conditions, for example, in DCC, can already be covered by the other laws that has been passed, like Hazardous Waste Act, Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act,
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Solid Waste Act. No, so it has to be amended. That's very important. Tama yung sinasabi nyo. Dapat magulo na masyado.
Okay. Thank you. Professor Carlos, please.
Yeah, salamat Melo, at binando mo na naman yung aking aklat on bureaucratic reform. Exactly. Ito yung sinasabi ko na tagal na. Yung overlaps, yung duplication, yung unclear lines of authority are really the scourges of the Philippines, which no one wants to pay attention to. Puro lang laway. Yan, ganito, reklamo tayo ng reklamo. Alam mo ba, my team is now helping Secretary Tugade. Alam mo, sa transportation, kami yung tumulong sa kanyang gawin yung roadmap, transport roadmap to 2050, yung National Transport Strategic Plan. Sino yung humaharang dyan? Itong tinamaan ng local government code. Kasi merong isang word doon, nakalagay transport. So, every 1,000 days, ang mga local executives, haharangin niya the most beautiful, noble plan ng integrated, seamless, intermodal transport strategic plan. Kanya nga, alam mo, wala na si Nene Pimentel. Pero talaga noon, barkada ko kasi yan, minumura ko talaga. Sabi ko, Nene, alam mo, ikaw may niyan, pakana niyang, yung local government code na yan, na sobra talagang sakit at pasakit ang ginawa sa ating governance. So, I'm listening to all your guests, Melo. Iniisip ko, guys, alam nyo kaming mga scholars, kailangan po namin ng salapi para magbayad ng research assistance. Hindi po libre yan, lalo na yung mga hinahire ko, MA and PhD. Ayaw ko ng bagong graduate dahil mainit ang ulo kong mag-train. No? Tanda na kasi ako. So, we've been asking you to please bigyan nyo kami ng konting salapi to put together the ills of the mining industry. Inumpisahan ko na yan pero binitiwan ko kasi naubusan na ako ng perang pambayad ng research assistant. Put this together. Make a comprehensive plan the immediately doable, medium, the long term. This will also include drafting of bills. Nako, ginagawa namin yan with our left hand kasi sanay na kami mag-draft ng bills and sanay na ako na mag-lobby sa mga legislators natin. I eat rejections, Melo, for breakfast, no? Kasi
Yeah.
ang dami niyang insulto ako, etc. Okay lang sa akin, I'm a scholar. I'm a nerd to those kinds of things. Importante, no? Bigyan niyo ko ng sapat na suporta para ma-design natin to. We're shooting here, there, and everywhere. And yet, tingnan mo, si Marvic Leonen, kaibigan ko din yan. Hindi ko alam, isa pala siya sa mga nagdeskanso nitong Mining Act. The Mining Act has to be revisited. Yung local government code na yan, dapat ilibing na yan at talagang magkaroon tayo ng ibang tono, trajectory in our laws. Otherwise, naku, Diyos ko, Melo, mauunahan pa tayo ng Cambodia, Laos at Myanmar, no? And that is the saddest part. You know, ang isang pa ako, Melo, ay nasa libingan na. So sana naman ay medyo ayus-ayusin natin ang Pilipinas and kamukha ng sinabi ninyo na panglima pala tayo, mali pala ako sa mineralized countries. Sobrang sayang ang ating kayamanan, both human and non-human resources.
All right. Naalala ko tuloy yung mantra ni Senator Bongo no hindi pa siya tumatakbong senador, yung malasakit. Pero mukhang sa sinasabi ng mga panauhin natin ngayon parang nahati yung malasakit into malas at sakit. Oh. Ngayon, Professor, matanong ko kayo, binanggit nyo kasi, Professor Clarita Carlos, na you eat rejections for breakfast. Do you think looking at the Senate and the House today, Puerto de los Buenos, mauunawaan kaya yung agenda ninyo? Considering the background they have before they got to be lawmakers that they are today?
Melo, alam mo, 74 na ako, 54 years na ako nagtuturo. Maasa pa rin ako. Of course, na hindi na naman bobo at at inept yung ating iboboto sa 2022, no? Actually, Melo, kung may salapi lang ako, magra-run ako. Unfortunately, wala nga tsaka matanda na ako. Yes, but you just keep on hoping. Democracy can only our deficits can only lessen. Our democratic deficits can only lessen when you have uninformed citizenry. And you look at the demographics of 64 million qualified voters. 70% of them are young voters. Kinabukasan nila itong nakasalalay dito. Imagine, nagno-note taking ako kasi out of the bang nakalagay dito, less than 2% ng mineralized hectareage natin ang namimina. No, hindi naman po pwedeng kalkalin mo ang buong archipelago, no? Pero ayusin mo siya. Ayusin mo yung regulatory environment. Bigyan mo, tignan mo yung damdamin ng mga mining industry, yung risk na kanilang tinitake. Ayusin mo yung regulatory framework para every 1,000 days, hindi siya naiiba-iba. Dahil nga, na iba yung iyon political structure. And sorry, Melo, but I really have to go to structural reforms. Let us move from where we are, unitary to federal, and let us move to a parliamentary system where we can kick out governments, governments who are bobo, inept, and corrupt at any time with a vote of confidence, with a vote of non-confidence. So, sorry, alam mo naman paborito ko yung constitutional reforms.
That's okay, that's okay. Kailangan kung talagang kailangan yan. Pero si Alden Monzon posed a question. I don't know who will volunteer to answer. Lately, issues with communist insurgency have been elevated to national discourse again by the Duterte administration. Do mining companies in the countryside suffer from extortion activities like other businesses? Is this a major consideration for many mining firms in the country? I don't know whether sino magbo-volunteer sumagot nito.
Well, ako muna, Melo,
Sige
definition. Po. Wala na pong komunista ngayon. Tayo na lang ang bansang gumagamit ng ganyang salita. The so-called communist countries are all capitalists out and out, no? China, Russia. And wag na natin sabihin sa kanilang, i-label sa kanilang communist. They're just criminals, okay? And you deal with them with the existing laws. You don't even need an anti-terror law for that, no? Deal with them like criminals, no? Yung PNP, ilan ba sila? 250,000 yung warm bodies? What are they doing, no? Yung military are not supposed to be nakikisaw-saw sila doon. They're supposed to defend us externally. Yun nga eh. We have sobrang marky na ngayon ng ating mandates, no? Pati mga military na may mentally ill na dahil hindi nila alam kung saan sila lulugar. Ayun, magbilang ng vaccine na hindi dumarating. Why are we doing that? Again, Melo, no? Sana meron pa akong kopya ng bureaucratic reform. Pakihingi lang po ng libro ko. Pakihingi lang sa Konrad Adenauer. Andun pa rin po siguro.
Pwede pa po. I don't know, Louis or Ron or Joey or Deo, would you care to add to the discussions? Because there's another question from Mar Serrano Arguelles naman of Legazpi City. Pero doon muna sa issue na communist extortionists daw. Komunista lang daw ba ang nag-e-extort? O baka meron ding iba? May sasagot ba? Deo. Please, Deo. Teka, sandali. Ayusin natin. I-unmute natin. Oh.
There. Unmuted?
Yeah. Yes.
I guess I'm the more harmless guy kasi hindi naman ako empleyado na, no? Retarded na din ako. But speaking from experience, from day one when I joined the industry, talaga ho pinapasok kami ng NPA. In fact, when I was with Benguet, lahat ng operations namin from Masinloc, Zambales, Dizon Mines, and even Jose Panganiban, pinasok ng NPA. Hindi lang yun. Yung manager namin sa Paracale, sa Jose Panganiban, kinuha nila for 1 month. Tinitraining nila to have a good attitude, etc. So, pinapasok kami. Now, as to asking for contributions, they do. In fact, iba humina namin pinasok, kinuha nila yung mga pera. Pero maybe to earn some sympathy to the people there. Kasi pag naggawa kami ng mining camp, pati yung aming mga empleyado, tumitira doon, nagtatayo kami ng housing units. You should see some of our housing units. Talagang they are taken care of. Like in Nicalacia, in Surigao, maganda ho yung housing units na ginawa nila. Is fitting for decent workers. Alam nyo, they really get the money. And then up to the time na they write you love letters for you to give a revolutionary tax. Otherwise, they will burn your equipment. We suffered that in one mining company. They burn our equipment. But you know what happened when they burn those equipment? Those equipment are being used by the people who stay in the area and they earn their livelihood using the equipment. Pinuntahan ho sila ng community, pinagsabihan sila, huwag niyo naman susunugin yung equipment, diyan kami nabubuhay. And that's in Mindanao. So yan ho yung lesson na there are really contacts. Even the military, they join the small-scale mining people. I've seen that with my own eyes. One day, yung isang official, sinabi nung colonel, saka pupunta, captain. Napanik lang ako sa taas, makiki-join. Ibig sabihin, magmimina din sa small-scale mining. So these are the things that people should know. Everyone is in it. Yung gusto ko yung last point ni Doktora Professor Carlos, yung governance. Ang problema ko sa atin ngayon is governance. Ang dami-daming batas, ang dami-daming hindi alam ang gagawa, and they are so uncoordinated. How can you improve an industry if your rules are so messed up? That's the problem mo natin.
Okay. Yun daw extortion ng PNP at ng militar, meron din daw ba?
Hindi ho sila nag-i-extort. No, they don't. My experience for several years, they don't extort, but if they need some to help, it's not really extorting. It's up for you to give, but they never did. But they joined small-scale mining activities. Yun lang ang problema.
Aha. Okay. So, hindi naman nangangaroling kahit mahal na araw, no? Hindi.
Hindi ho. No. They're also, namamatay nga sila, ginagwardyahan kami sa mina, but they're so small. Some really perform the duty in the mountains, but they're so small, oftentimes they're outnumbered. Ilan lang kung contingent inilalagay sa mina, or like minsan in 2013 ba yun, o 2012. Yung mina pinasok ng mga NPA, kukunti lang ho yung contingent ng military, umatras. Napasok ng mina, mabuti na lang walang binaril na empleyado. Yun lang ako, pag nakita ko uniforme ka, delikado ang buhay mo. Even our security guards, yung blue guard namin, tanggal lahat ang long arms, ang rifle. And then you have to ransom the long arms from them. Babayaran nung agency. Kasi nagkukuha kami ng security agency na lang Para wala nang ano sa armado. Kasi
Okay.
yan ang buhay. That's the life we have.
Malupit ano. Ron,
Oh.
sa Chamber of Mines, what have you heard? May ganun din ba? May extortion din ba?
Well, tama yung sabi ni Attorney Deo the problem isn't really with the PNP or the Army because they are reliable partners ng mines sa field.
Yeah.
No? It's really the NPAs. And tama rin si Professor Carlos, they are no longer operating on principle. Talagang tulisan na lang ito They're really just out to extort money from operating mines. Ang last incident nga na major na nangyari was yung sinunog ang equipment ng Kagyano ba yun, Joey?
Yeah. Surigao, Nicalasia.
In Surigao, oo. Because they did not want to give money to these people,
Yes.
no? So yun ang nangyayari regularly. Our only precaution there is yun nga, we engage with our community, and the community very often protects the mine also kasi nga doon ang gagaling din ang kabuhayan nila
Okay. Yeah. Joey, may dadagdag ka?
Camelo, usually sa exploration, kasi kami yung unang sa field, di ba? Nakikita mo naman yan sila. Kami na una Di naman sila nagpapano lang sila na I think sa exploration hindi sila masyadong siguro
Wala pang pera.
Wala masyado
Walang pera doon.
Ang ano lang kasi, what we usually do is we go to the barangay captain and then hihingi kami ng labor force para sa exploration na konti. So usually ang ibibigay ng captain medyo halo para on both sides, tapos it gives employment. So hindi masyado sa exploration yung But that was before. Pero ngayon na you don't see the abuses anymore na nagkaroon ng bakit nagkaroon tong NPA problem. Tama yung sabi ni Attorney Ron tsaka ni Attorney Deo. You should read his book, The Rise of Small Scale Mining. It's a very good insight. Iba extortion kasi what are they fighting for? Ang sabi rin ni Professor Carlos, there's no more communists. It's all siguro nakahawak ng baril, hindi na pwedeng bumalik. So it's power for them. Parang gano'n na lang in the countryside
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully they can be brought back to the fold, and wala namang naniniwala na China is not a communist. Russia is not a communist. Tayo na lang ata nagsasabi ng communist as sabi ni Professor Carlos And I think maganda talaga yung suggestion, yung bureaucracy which we should look into. Yung disconnect, which is really a big problem in the Philippines right now.
All right. Question from Mar Serrano Arguelles of Legazpi City. Your guests, how do politicians, national and local, influence or corrupt the mining industry in the country? And your take on the looming economic provisions changes in the Constitution. What impact would it have on the industry? So dalawang tanong yan. Yung national and local politicians influence and they corrupt the mining industry in the country, and the economic provisions that they promise to change sa kanilang movement. Ron, from the Chamber of Mines view?
Sa amin naman, sa pagkakaalam namin, there isn't really a concerted effort from politicians to corrupt, ang experience nga namin is that when we engage with politicians, parang mining is the ugly baby. They don't want to touch it. Ang ginagawa nila is they compete with it. They put up, some of them reportedly, especially at the local level, put up their own small-scale mining operations. So in that sense, ang gusto nilang mangyari, masipa si large-scale so that the area can be mined by small-scale mining operations.
At kanila na.
Kanila na. So, kasi if you note, ang small-scale mining ngayon ay operating tax-free. Since 2019, they have been exempt from excise tax on minerals and income tax. Walang binabayarang buwis yan. No? So
Okay.
it's very attractive. But as to corruption, we don't really note an organized effort to extort money from politicians.
Okay. What about the economic provisions that the politicians promised to change in the House of Representatives?
There is a pending bill right now, and we hope it is something that the Senate can act on and finally pass. No, that bill, if passed into law, will result in the lifting of the moratorium, which will in turn encourage more quality investments into the country. Yun nga lang, we've been proposing a fiscal regime bill since 2012. We've had siguro 4 versions already, and hindi kami makausad from even just the committee. We are always stuck at the committee level in the lower house.
Uh-huh.
Matagal nang kailangan na ipasa sana yung fiscal regime.
Yeah. Okay, Deo?
Yung with respect to the economic provision, you said of the Constitution, ano?
That they want to change.
That they want to change, no? Para ma-liberalize, pumasok investment. Ang nakikita ho namin yan is the 60-40 limitation of the Constitution under the National Patrimony, Article 12, Section 2. Kasi ho, ang ating local mining under the MPSA, 60-40 ka lang. 40% foreign, 60% local. Tapos there are industries there na dapat localized lang. Yun know, yata yung tinatarget ng sa Congress na i-liberalize. Ang concern lang ho dyan kasi, how far will you go in liberalizing it? Kasi ho yung 60-40 provision natin sa Constitution, that was patterned after the Mexican Constitution. Ginaya ho natin yung Mexico nung panahon ng mga Amerikano. Pinattern nila doon. 60-40 din tayo. Pero ngayon sinasabi nila, it's already outdated na hindi dapat ganon. But under our Constitution, yung FTA, Financial or Technical Assistance Agreement, that agreement can be operated 100%, owned 100% by foreigners. Pero alam niyo kung ilan lang ang FTA natin? It's about 5 lang. O konti. Why? Because it's a huge investment you have to input there. You have to have $50 million initial investment. Sino naman ang maglalagay ng ganon? Hindi mo pa alam kung yung iyong area when you explore is really viable. Kaya nga they're, I think, targeting the 60-40 limitation doon sa ating Constitution to relax. Pero what we wish to see is how will you relax the 60-40? How will you relax the nationalized industry we have? Kasi yung pakawalan mo yan, it could start an avalanche ng Dr. Carlos and again, on governance issues.
Aha. Ang sabi kasi, yung ilang mga kababayan natin natuto sa mga kapatid nating Chino doon sa kasabihan na for every crisis, there's an opportunity. And that
Indeed.
opportunity would be probably to make money somewhere along the line.
You don't have to go far. You look at this COVID-19 plague. You look at the distribution of assistance to the LGUs. They were saying, yung nakatira sa subdivision, hindi ka marireceive ng assistance. Yung mga poor will receive assistance. Teka muna ho, sino ba nagbabayad ng tax sa bayan na ito?
That is another question. Siguro,
Yes.
that will be another topic we can talk about.
Yes. Oh, kaya nga connect sa governance eh.
Okay. Professor Carlos, mukhang kailangan nyo pa ng vitamina for you to live longer and do a lot.
Well, Melo, bumalik tayo dun sa ESG framework na sinabi ko na kanina, no? Yung environment, social, and governance issues. If these were to be adopted not only locally, nationally, regionally, and internationally, then we will not be concerned with the kinds of issues that are raised now in this forum. Kasi yung ESG, magiging universal cookie cutter siya, parang criteria. Na pag ang definition mo ng, sige pasado ka ha, whether you are large, medium, or small, no? Sabi ko nga alisin na natin yung ating pagbibigay ng sobrang alagwa diyan sa small. Kasi alam mo bilang bilang tao, yung small, sinasabi natin, gawin natin, hilahin natin sila pataas. Pero minsan, dahil sa ating bleeding heart mentality, sobra naman ang binigay natin sa kanila. Hindi ko nga alam na wala pala silang income tax at excise tax, etc. Ang saya naman nila. Ay paano yung mining industry na lahat na lang ng
Taxes.
kapahamakan nasa kanila? This is what we need. Governance really is the key word. So sana kayong nasa mining industry, tulungan nyo ako i-sell yung idea ng ESG. No? I know many were policymakers don't listen to us as scholars, but they should listen to us scientists. Kasi kami yung pinakamalapit sa datos. No? Wala namang ginagawa kami sa buong buhay namin kung hindi mangalkal ng datos. Ako nga minumura sa Facebook, anong sagot ko sa kanila, Melo? Sige, murahin mo ko. But, magbigay ka ng counter data, otherwise you shut up, no? Unfortunately, hindi ako marunong magmura, baka maban ako sa Facebook, no? But yes, it's really data versus counter data. That's all it is, no? That's all there is to it. And yun nga, I'm sure you mining industry, you are supported by scientists all over the world also. So tulungan ninyo ko is-sell the idea of the ESG because I think that is the best framework that we can all install and embed in your strategic plans, and everybody profits. You have perceptive investors who will not pull out kasi wow, you're not only doing well, you're doing good. Diba? I'm sorry to be a bit preachy, but yes, scholars only worship in the altar of science, but science is also for the good of humanity, however corny it sounds. But yes, that's what it is really.
Yeah, Professor, wag po kayong magmumura, otherwise you will sound presidential.
Ako marunong magmura.
Good. Okay, can we look forward? What could be done for people to benefit from the industry? In the first place, yung loophole doon sa small scale, because if the small scale miners do not earn money and it is the financiers who earn, who are the protectors? Saan napupunta yung ginto? Paano lumalabas ng bansa? These are basic questions that we should address. Director Jerry, Yusek Jerry, what are your thoughts?
When we started small scale mining, we had an agreement with the central bank that all gold should go to the central bank.
Okay.
Unfortunately also is that there was a policy then which was known to almost everybody in the MGB, that, and even in the public, that mere possession of gold is illegal because you have to have a permit for you to have gold. Now, I was handling the Walwal for quite a long time. In fact, that was the reason why the small scale mining authored by us under PT 1899
Correct.
came into effect. It was designed only for almost 3 metals, I think. First one is gold, second is chromite, because that was the most traded minerals then. Now, ang agreement with the central bank is that the central bank and the region would have exchanged data on how much gold will be purchased by the central bank. During the time, every week averages from the Walwal alone and Pantukan area. During the time, I still can remember the average gold production per month from the Walwal and Pantukan area, that is excluding big scale mining, was 800 kilos a week. You can just imagine that. And the small scale mining then, our estimate based on rumors will really go, 60% goes to the government, 40% goes out to, sabi nila karamihan nagsasabi Bulacan. So, now I do not know really. Milo, it is really a setting. What I can recommend is that codify the small scale mining law, or there should be only one. We always say that we marry the two small scale mining laws to have a clearer of the small scale mining.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
Yun
Kaya
lang,
lang,
Milo.
isn't there a possibility that this gold goes out of the country without us knowing?
Definitely.
There is, I was the one who convinced the small scale miner to sell to the central bank. No?
Uh-huh.
Because government kasi napakahirap sell. So I was able to convince him because the director of the central bank before was one of our metallurgists in the Bureau of Mines, and he became the director of director of the refinery. So I was able to convince him to visit Surigao and look at the refineries of the small scale mining industry. And he was at first he was adamant, but I said, you just look at how, so that we can convince you that we can sell the gold directly from small scale miners to the central bank. And he was very much surprised that the refineries of the small scale miners was very high. In fact, comparable and even higher sometimes to the ordinary refineries of mining companies. So the question is policy. Normally, if it is government, you have to have the small scale miners once an advance, because it is to them at the end of the day, after you get the gold, you pay in cash. So they want immediately that once they sell to the central bank, this will be paid in cash immediately. The problem then at the start was, as far as I can remember, is that the analysis then would cost the central bank so much. So in those areas, I think we negotiated with them na kung pwede lang sa central bank, sabi ko kung pwede lang, retention ng 10%, 90% upon the pure quality of gold.
Mhm.
So ultimately, pumayag ang central bank niya. But you have to have, originally, we have to sell 300 grams to the central bank so that they can taste it. Because as far as I can remember, I think one sample should be about 150 grams. No, 300 grams. But then we were able to lower it down to 150. And then sinabi ko na nga kaya, yung director, sabi ko, kung pwede, mag-advance lang kayo ng 90%. Because, din yan negosyo yan, kunin niya ngayon, bayaran niya ngayon, bibinta niya ulit. O ibabayad niya ulit sa kanyang mga trabaho. So
Okay.
it was working well. But there was a time that I still can, there was a time that a certain gold was caught, I think, in the airport, going out about 400 grams, if I'm not mistaken. But I really do not know where it goes, but it was already at the airport na nahuli lang ng government. So there was really an attempt.
Yeah, okay. Talagang malupit, ano?
Yeah.
Kaya lang, talagang mabigat ito. Deo,
Melo, pwede bang magtanong doon yung sinabing 800 kilos ni Yusek Jerry? Is that
kilos.
a week? Parang nag-note kasi ako dito. Tama po pa yung 800 kilos per week? Or per 2 weeks ba yun? Yung kanina?
Per week.
From Diwalwal, 800 kilos were harvested. Parang gano'n. Tama po ba yun?
Jerry?
Yusek Jerry?
Hello? Uy, nawala yung internet ni Jerry. I recall it's 800.
Kilos?
Yeah.
Ang laki nun
Malaki
It
yun.
is.
A week.
Yes.
It's very
From
big.
Diwalwal and another one na hindi ko nakuha.
Uy, nawala na si Jerry sa linya. Yung internet niya, bumigay na. Deo?
Thank you.
Yeah, Deo?
Yeah.
Your thoughts about this? Yung gano'ng kalaking produksyon?
I'm not sure about the 800. Wala akong data. Ang data ko lang yung dito sa libro about production in the entire Philippines. At sinabi dito nga ni Miss Mirabilia, yun nung nag-report na Miraflor. Oh, ni Mads, your friend, I guess. Sinabi niya dito, can I read it again? Kasi dapat exact yung figure. Hindi ho ganun kalaki yung naibigay nila eh.
Sige nga.
I lost it.
Okay.
I lost it. But doon ho sa Doon ho sa the smallest is in Benguet area where some of the president of the small scale miner in Benguet is our friend. Would you imagine they were able to produce, hindi ho kilos 2 to 3 tons a year of
Ah,
gold. Yes.
hindi biro yan.
Hindi nga ho biro, kaya napakalaking occurrence. Kaya it is really an industry that is small, but it's so huge underground.
Okay.
Kaya ho billions yung revenue nawawala sa gobyerno, and yet the problem is governance, like the mayor in Tugon, who cannot stop it because he's part of the population.
Yeah.
Paano ho yun?
Okay.
Really governance.
All right. Thank you, Deo. Joey, bago tayo bumalik kay Louis.
Yung small scale mining law kasi at saka yung IRR, kailangan may minahang bayan and then you get a small scale mining permit. So karamihan doon, it ends there. So they mine, and then one more thing, kailangan na if it's a tenement held by a big company, dapat may consent. And then they pay a fixed royalty, a minimum 1.5%. Usually, pinabayaan na yun. So the mining company doesn't get a royalty kasi kahit that is stipulated by law. Pangalawa, hindi na-implement masyado yung processing. Though there's a law na kailangan may processing approved by the government, hindi naman lahat yun na implement yung processing nila. So, walang processing plant, pero may nagmimina. Saan mo dadalhin yung ginto? So, that's a problem. But if that is fully implemented na pag meron kang minahang bayan, meron kang small scale mining permit, at meron kang approved processing plant, na mo-monitor. Kaya lang, wala ring enough staff yung MGB to monitor. So all of those things, maraming disconnect. So maraming loopholes na even if you produce so much gold, hindi pumapasok sa system na ilang the actual figures, hindi mo rin na ang true value dahil nawawala They usually bring it somewhere to a processing plant na illegal and then get the profit. So wala talagang walang revenue to the government.
Okay. Joey, kuminsan kasi yung mga kataga na nababanggit na mispronounce. You mentioned monitor. What if the term monitor na mispronounce it?
Monitor.
Iba na yung larawan doon.
Mahaba-habang usapan niya, Camelo, pag ganyan. Mahaba-habang usapan yan.
Delikado. Oo. Okay.
Well, can I comment?
Sige. Deo, bago tayo bumalik kay Louie at kay Ron. Yes.
Doon muna sa small scale kasi it's really it is not really small, it's huge industry, no? Kasing sinasabi ni Director ni USEC Jerry Dolino, when he was still active in the Bureau of Mines, he was referring to the 1986 program of the MGB, Mines and Geosciences Bureau, to regulate the gold rush in Davao del Norte. Davao del Norte nagkaroon ng gold rush up to the Walwal. And then to regulate that, the secretary then was Secretary Ernesto Maceda. And then he convened as Mr. Ernie Maceda, but they were really trying to put together a sane regulation of the small-scale mining rules under PD 1899. But the number one there is yung purpose sa whereas clauses ng PD 1899, if you will read it, it's more on social, to give more livelihood to small people. Parang it's like really sounding like a populist rule para give them, and then while the big large scale mining are having difficulty because cost of production is high. Ganun yung rason doon sa program nila no 1986 sa Davao del Norte kasi at that time about 100,000 people, small scale, have already entered the area, especially in the Walwal, in Mount Diwata. And kaso nung nag-meeting sila, the Secretary Maceda called for a meeting among the governor, the mayor. Ang target is the health safety and proper mining of the small scale mining. At saka pinag-formulate ng mga rules, MGB, DNR, MGB, puro technical people yan. Hindi sinama yung hindi nila nakita in a larger, wider scale, in a macro point of view, what is the economic impact? What is the political impact? What is the social impact? How do you control this with respect to the rest of the population. Hindi yun address. Kaya that thing is sayang. They made a budget out of that. Hindi naman nung malaki. Siguro mga 3 or 4 million. Alam nyo, saan ginamit yung budget? And they reported it. Ginamit lang sa gastusin ng MGB, DNR. Eh, nasan ho yun sa community to be involved in discussing all these things? Kaya yung budget, wala hong involvement yung community. Walang involvement yung other agencies. Like in survey, you have to involve the Bureau of Plans. They're not involved. So
Okay.
yan ang problema dyan eh.
Masaklap ano? Okay. Kaluwi, ano po ang nakikinikinita ninyo sa industriya natin?
Mag-comment lang din po ako dun sa small scale
Please.
mining industry because whether we like it or not, andyan po yan. It's been there for a while even before the large scale mines operated in those areas. And nasabi naman po ni Attorney Deo na it's not only an industry issue, it's economical, it's political, social, it's a safety issue, it's an environmental issue. Lahat po yan kasama dyan. So it's either we work and together and address these concerns or totally alisin natin, but definitely we cannot, no. So in our own small scale of operations po sa aming company, we introduce through the efforts before nung ni Dr. Walter Brown yung ating pong big brother small brother concept. So ito po, yung company becomes the big brother, helping the small brother to make to assign some areas that they can mine in our tenement, and then we provide them with the training, with the safety PPEs to help them do their operations safely. So meron po kami ngayong ginagawa ngayon, ongoing po yun, and nakakatulong po yun dun sa mga small scale operations dun sa amin. At the same time, natigil po yung mga illegal small scale. So hopefully, itong pong sa aming Benguet operations, we will introduce the same concept.
All right.
So
Yeah.
yun po ang ano. Ano po kasi, lalo yan sa very attractive for small scale yung mga epithermal vein type deposits ng gold at madaling magmina pero delikado, kaya laging nagiging issue yan na merong small scale. So that's how we address the issue, Camelo.
Okay. Ron, meron kang naisibahagi na slides? Tama ba yan?
Yes, Melo. May sinend ako sa grupo na isang slide on small
Pakisuyo
scale
nga.
mining.
I-open mo na siguro para makita ng lahat. And you're allowed to share.
I'm allowed to share.
Of course.
Paano ba?
Paki-click mo na lang.
Fine.
Share screen. Okay ka na. Go ahead.
Paano ko mag-share screen? Desktop. The desktop.
Oo,
Okay.
pwede.
Sandali.
Ayan. Okay na?
Shared. Nakikita niyo na ba?
Wala.
Teka, sandali ha. Pakitry mo nga ulit.
Or Meloy, can you open from your end? Sinend ko sa chat yung file.
Oh, sige. Subukan natin.
Baka
Baka
mas madali
sakaling
yan.
makuha.
Oo.
Alright. Teka, nawawala. Oops. Sandali po. Yan. Okay na ba? Kita nyo?
Wala pa.
Metallic Industry Facts and Figures?
Yes.
Wala. Melo, hanapin mo yung apo mo para may pakita.
Technologically challenged tayo.
Technically challenged.
At any rate, I sent this kasi I wanted to show you what happened to small scale mining. No? In 2011, the BSP started to enforce the law. They started to impose the 2% excise tax and the 5% withholding tax on all gold sold to BSP. At that time, gold sales to BSP from small scale mining was nearing around 40, 50 billion a
Hmm.
year,
Yeah.
pesos a year. It was big.
Yes.
No? When
Yes.
they started enforcing that, suddenly gold sales to BSP plummeted by 95%.
Okay.
Plummeting talaga to less than 100 million a year. No? Clearly, hindi naman tumigil sa pag-operate ang small-scale miners. They continue to operate, but they no longer sold to BSP.
Yan.
Ang tanong, saan nila binenta? We've had anecdotal evidence saying that it was all shipped out to Hong Kong, to buyers in Hong Kong and China.
Pero paano
Pina-shopper
nakarating?
out.
Pero paano nakarating yung mga ginto na yon sa Hong Kong at sa China? Nagbangka kaya o nag-aeroplano?
Eh kung may private plane ka, sandali lang
Kung
yun,
may private,
Camelo.
dalawang oras yun.
Okay.
Ito pa ngayon, Camelo, ito ang masaya dito, no? Sa BSP, so BSP was no longer getting gold from small-scale mining operations. So in 2018, nag-propose sila, wag na nating buwisan, exempt na natin, in-exempt ang small-scale mining gold from excise tax of minerals at saka income tax. That was 2018. In the
And-
hopes that it would encourage small-scale miners to sell gold to BSP.
Again.
Yes, that was 2018. 2020 na, hindi pa rin tumataas ang gold sales ng BSP.
Oh.
So, double whammy tayo ngayon, hindi ba? Nawala na yung ginto, nawala pa ang buwis.
Okay. So in that case, meron dapat managot. Meron dapat managot.
Somebody drop the ball again, Camelo.
Galit si Presidente Duterte sa corruption. Yan. Mhm.
Clearly, if you ask Yusek Jerry, it's really a matter of enforcement. Siguro it's not the BSP's core competence to find where the miners are, no? But clearly, they have to look for when the ball mills are operating.
Okay.
Because that's where the gold will be coming out, di ba?
Yeah.
If
Okay.
they're just waiting for sellers to come to them, walang pupunta.
Okay. Jerry, you said Jerry?
Yeah.
Coming
Yeah,
from the outside, huh? Coming from the outside, looking in.
Yeah, that is why kasi when we started, we always have an agreement with the central bank. And I do not know whether who stopped that. There was an agreement really that all the gold should be sold to the central bank. But we have to convince central bank to take into consideration also the predicament of the small-scale mining industry. That is why I said during that time, 90% should be given immediately once they sell to the central bank. 90% the value of the gold. The 10% is withheld until the final analysis is or comes out. Now, unfortunately, when we started, Camelo, when we started, a guy from Agosan goes to the central bank, try to sell a half kilo. I think there was it wasn't just a hitch in the process. He was issued a check. No, it says a cross-check. 90% nga the value, but cross-check. So he cannot encash it immediately. So he was complaining because our agreement it should be cast, the check that will be issued to him should be cast immediately because ibabayad din yan sa kanyang sa mga tao na mga worker niya doon sa kanyang small industry. No, so sabi ko, tinawagan ko kay director, what happened to our agreement? Sabi niya, hindi niya na askaso. Anyway, pinalitan yung check right there and then napapalitan. So the arrangement then was continuous. And we know that the central bank during the time we know that almost all the gold of the central bank in Davao are coming from small scale mining. The big scale mining, like for example, APEC before operating gold, they do not sell it to the central bank in Davao. I was talking to the manager before, and sabi niya, we do not need to sell because we have an airplane. Because the government charged them the transportation from Central Bank Davao to Central Bank Manila. So that is why we know that the gold that is sold to the central bank in Davao which is, as I said, at average 800 kilos a week, no, are purely coming from the small scale in Mindanao. So,
Okay.
para sa akin, no, it has to be that policy that gold, mere possession of gold is really illegal in a sense. And pwede na sigurong criminal act yan. No? So, secondly, we have to encourage the central bank to buy the gold. And sabi nga namin, previously, the small-scale mining law until 1899 was really designed as a social law to convince a small scale to sell their gold to the central bank. So, tax-free. Yun lang, no?
All right, maganda to ah. Anyway,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Professor Carlos, for your final word for this morning's interview. What are your thoughts? How do we move forward? Can we really benefit from this hidden wealth? And can we generate something from this so-called small scale, which actually is a much bigger scale in mining? Professor Carlos?
Yeah, thank you so much, Melo, for inviting me to this forum. I thought I knew about the mining industry, having swam in the literature for how many years. And I'm getting sadder and sadder as I listen to the narratives here. And I would like to document them. You know, do you know how legislators are? Their attention span is only 2 minutes and they start texting or calling on their phones. And I would like to collapse all your narratives in a 2-minute video presentation, just to dramatically tell them what is wrong with the mining industry and why our hidden wealth can in fact enrich us if we only use the ESG framework that I had talked about earlier. It's a tall order. It's difficult to do that. But I think I am offering my services to you guys. You know, let's help put all this together. Let us have a lobbying effort. Let us have a communication effort. One of the panelists said that wala kaming pera para mag-disseminate yan. You know, information is a pivotal, a critical variable in all this. And given the social media expansion and explosion of knowledge all around, I think we should pay attention to mining. No? Talagang kalkalin natin yan, and I'm sure we are going to address the safety issue of our workers, the environmental issues, and most importantly, the governance issues. No? Sana, Melo, I'd like to end this forum in medyo nakalungkot ako, no? Sana I'm trying to be optimistic and puro lahat ng magsalita, puro malungkot, no? But, you know, yeah, but something really has to be done, no? If we have reached the bottom, I'm sure wala naman tayong aakyatan na kundi pataas, di ba? Do you all agree? Andiyan na eh. Sabihin na natin, tinamaan na natin yung pinakamababa. Paakyat na ngayon. I'd like to, to conclude on that note, I think. Thank you very much.
Okay, Bigan, I'd like to thank everyone who took time out to be with us. Si Professor Clarita Carlos, si Atty. Deo Contreras, si Ginoong Joey Aizon, si Engineer Luis Sarmiento ng PIMSEA, at nakasama natin si Yusek Jerry Dolino, who is also Director of PIMSEA. No, this is a family affair. I'd like to thank our friends from Manila Standard today, yung ating mga nanood mula sa Mindanao, sa Bicol region at sa Estados Unidos at sa Saudi Arabia, at yung ating kaibigang si Alden Monzon ng Kyodo News, at iba pa. No? Si Othel nga pala, babatiin ko ng Manila Standard today. Thank you very much for being a part of our discussions today. You know, hope will always be there. As they say, hope springs eternal. Unless they decide to tax hope, then let's continue hoping. Something good will come out because what is needed today is consistency and continuity. Now, that is what lacks in our government leaders because most are concerned with the 6-year legacy. After my presidency, forget it. Let the new president decide on what to do. And our attention span, according to Professor Carlos, is just 2 minutes, especially for politicians. Kung meron ka mga magagaling na staff, katulad ni Dayan, na staff ng isang mambabatas, we will move forward. So by 2022, Let's elect people who can lead us. Let's elect people who would know the law and who would vow to follow the law and create lives better for the Filipinos. I'm not asking for the moon. I'm just asking for some moon dusts, so to speak. Thank you. Have a nice day. God bless us all. Till next time. Salamat po. Salamat po.